Hello everyone, my name is John Irwin. I'm CEO of Compliance Navigation Specialist. I'm here with Jared Kline, Director of Client Services, who is my right-hand guru of compliance. We had some exciting news come out of the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration yesterday about the expansion of the Crash Preventability Determination Program. I believe this is a positive step in the right direction and will benefit a lot of carriers with their safety management scores. The Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration said the proposed changes are expected to double the size of the current Crash Preventable Determination Program. There are currently 16 eligible types to be considered non-preventable. The proposal will modify some of the 16 existing types and add 4 new types to expand the current program. Jared, how about you walk us through the first 11 eligible modified proposals?
So of the 16 current types, 11 of them will be further clarified. So I'm going to go down the list here and read some of those off. The first type is going to be a CMV was struck because another motorist was driving in the wrong direction. That will be further clarified. Number 2, a CMV was struck because another motor carrier was making an illegal U-turn or a U-turn. Number 3, CMV was struck because another motorist did not slow or stop in traffic. Number 4, CMV was struck because another motorist failed to stop at a traffic control device, meaning a stoplight, sign of some sort. Number 5, a CMV was struck because another individual was under the influence or related violations such as operating while intoxicated, according to the legal standard of jurisdiction where the crash occurred. Number 6, a CMV was struck because another motorist experienced a medical issue which contributed to the crash. Number 7, CMV was struck because another motorist fell asleep. Number 8, a CMV was struck because another motorist was distracted, such as a cell phone or a GPS. Number 9, a CMV was struck by cargo, equipment, or other debris, such as falling rocks, falling trees. Number 10, CMV was a resulted of an infrastructure failure, such as a bridge collapsing or the roadway having a defect in it of some kind. Number 11, the last one, a CMV was involved in a crash while with a non-motorist. Some of these were already under the current 16. These are just being further clarified to give more specific values to the submissions, such as like before, if the CMV struck a non-motorist, it would actually go into the rare or unusual category. Now it's going to have its own category to drop under whenever it's submitted.
Yeah, very cool. So out of these, they're really broadening these first 11. Anything that stands out to you on this modification?
So a lot of these were still under the preventable factors, so there's not a lot of change to the ones that they're, the changing that they're doing isn't so much of a change as it is just more individualized submissions. So if it's going to qualify, it's going to qualify under this specific category rather than a more broad category. So there's not a whole lot of changes, but where the changes come in are going to be the newer, the 4 new ones.
Yeah, so let's talk about the four of them that are coming in. If you kind of want to tell the viewers what they are.
So these 4, in our opinion, and in my opinion, are going to be excellent ways to further give carriers more freedom. In terms of, in my opinion, it was just like an unfair item that the FMCSA was judging carriers on. This greatly affects your crash indicator scores under your basics. And you could actually get audited or have an unsatisfactory crash rate, even though the crashes were, non-preventable, really. So as we go down the list, we'll kind of get into more detail about them. But the first new type is going to be that a CMV was struck on the side by a motorist operating in the same direction. Currently, the crash type is limited to side strikes at the very rear of the vehicle, such as the 5 o'clock or 7 o'clock position. So you would have to be struck in the very rear side at the rearmost tandem. So your rearmost axle, if you were struck in the corner, that would qualify under a side collision. Whereas now, if you're struck going the same direction and somebody, is changing lanes at an unsafe way, and they strike you, that will now qualify as long as the police report does describe that.
I know your team, you and your team do a lot of these data Q challenges for our clients and whatnot. And I remember looking through some of our data that we have, and this was a popular one that people would submit in and say, hey, I'm not at fault, but didn't really fall into the current eligibility, where this will give a little bit more, hopefully positive to get those removed.
Yeah, unfortunately, it was just one of those things you'd have to explain to carriers that this was just kind of an unfair item that the FMCSA was putting on them in terms of how they, I think where the idea came from was, commercial drivers are held at a higher standard than your regular passenger, just your regular everyday motorist. They are supposed to foresee certain items and issues while you're out on the road. For instance, if you're traveling down there and there's a lane merging, 3 lanes become 2. They expect you to kind of foresee what potential is going to happen there, right? You slow down, you let other cars kind of get in there. So that there is a certain extent there where I could see where they were going with that. But in my opinion, like if somebody, changes lanes 2 lanes over, you're in the far right lane and somebody's traveling in the passing lane on the left side, decides that they got to cut across to get off the exit, and they sideswipe you. You would never really be able to prevent that, in my opinion. And I think that this is a really positive opening and give you more options. And I think that there's going to be a lot more crashes that qualify under this type.
Yeah. I mean, we're both, professional CDL holders and whatnot. And I mean, just what you were saying about those highway merges, even though, and I know all of our listeners that are truckers and do bus, transportation, know this is just because you're big doesn't mean everybody looks out for you. And, these side swipes, will now be, if it's not your fault, determined non-preventable, will now be removed off, where if they didn't meet that criteria, they would have stayed on, which was a bummer. But
exactly.
I really like that one. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go on number 2.
Well, jumping over to the second one was actually another very important type. The second option is going to be a CMV was struck because another motorist was entering the roadway from a private roadway or parking lot. Before, if you were pulling out of a driveway, if you were driving, let's just say in a residential area or even an industrial park, and there might have been a hidden driveway. Maybe that was in industrial parks. That happens all the time. There's landscaping that's done. There's rocks, there's trees that you can't really see if somebody's kind of pulling out from that spot. If they would pull out right in front of you and you had no way to stop, even if they actually struck you on the side, unfortunately, that did not fall under the current qualifying events. Now they're going to open that up. Again, the police report and dash cams, which we'll touch base on a little bit here more. If you have a dash cam and you can see, okay, I was right in front of that driveway when that car pulled out and actually struck me on the side, or, I had no chance of slowing down. I'm going 25 or 15 miles an hour in a residential area, which is pretty slow, but unfortunately, we all know that even if you're going 15 miles an hour, somebody can pull right in front of you. They didn't see you, you didn't see them. Unfortunately, the onus should probably be on that car that pulled out, rather than the already moving vehicle. But there was a lot of crashes that I looked at that unfortunately got denied because of that. I think this is going to be a really positive move as well. Again, with dash cams further providing more proof that you would not have an opportunity. Right now, again, you can't be speeding if you're going 35 and a 25 and you're going through a residential area and you shouldn't be going that fast and that person pulls out. Unfortunately, that's probably not going to be one of the ways that we can get that removed for you, because again, you were speeding. And the police report is really where all the data is found. So once that police report comes out, pretty much all the facts kind of get laid out there. But having supporting camera footage and all that stuff is always going to be a benefit.
Absolutely.
Number 3, the CMV was struck because another motorist lost control of their vehicle. So the FMCSA reviewed many police crash reports that included this information, but were ineligible for the program under the current crash types. So, if you're traveling just on a 2-lane road, somebody else that's kind of coming up next to you may or may not be speeding. If they lose control of their vehicle and crashing you, hydroplane, or even, I've seen issues where they hit the median and their car flipped around and now they're in front of you and you hit. That happens. When you lose control of your car, you don't know where it's going. So you had no control over that as a commercial motor vehicle driver, and you shouldn't be held. The company shouldn't be held accountable for that, for something that they could not have foreseen. If that car loses where they're going and slides out, or honestly, the instances of them becoming trapped under your trailer. Unfortunately, those don't turn out very well. But that does happen where, we've we've all seen the Christmas Vacation scene where Chevy Chase slides under the truck. That happens in real life.
Great scene.
Yeah, it happens in real life, but that's a real thing that happens. And if that were to fall into a crash category, that would be one of those. Moving down to the fourth one, then, it would be any other type of crash involving a CMV where a video demonstrates the sequence of events of the crash. FMCSA said that it believes that the submission of videos could allow it to review crashes that are not under the 21 types. This is just a more broad, okay, if it doesn't fall under the other types, but we still feel that it's non-preventable, I have video evidence that, yeah, I couldn't have prevented this. This was just out of my control. Again, if you have video proof showing the sequence, maybe you have video proof that actually disputes what the police report says as well. Now, typically, you're going to have to dispute that police report with that individual police station. However, if you're going to submit that may be different, you could state that, and we would have a fighting chance to get that removed as well.
Yep.
So this is going to just open it up for those weird ones where it's like, maybe it didn't fall into the other 21 or other 20 categories, but this one would allow it to be there. So we're going to go from 16 to 21. Some of them are going to be the same, and then we have 4 new ones that would give a lot more options, I think, to help carriers get these removed.
Mm-hmm. Good. Anything that stands out to you? I know you kind of mentioned a little bit about the cameras a little bit. We at Compliance Navigation Specialists, we always try to tell our carriers and the drivers that it benefits you. I understand that privacy comes into that, so I'm not saying that it has to be a rear-facing camera, but or facing towards the driver, but at least a forward-facing camera will really save not only in this crash, insurance cost and litigation. Everybody's trying to sue the trucker for everything. Anything you want to add on to that?
We know that the billboard lawyers are automatically going to blame the trucking company. So, let's just say that you don't have a dash cam. You're going to get put to blame anyway because you're the big rig on the road. You're the CDL driver. So you get thrown into a lawsuit. They're going to make it sound like you should have known better anyway.
Yep.
Right. So knowing that I'm already going to be on the defensive in any sort of a lawsuit or, I want to be on the offensive and proactive about getting this done and making sure that, okay, if I have dash cams, even if they're not, you're both, driver facing and forward facing, I think the more cameras, the better. I think that's definitely a thing, but we can see why drivers don't want to have their cameras, on them all the time. But at the same point, they are there to protect you as a driver, in my opinion. Unfortunately, in this day and age, we live in a YouTube society that everything else is on camera. So if you don't have it on camera, chances are somebody else might. Other cars on the road do have their cameras. Some, if it's in a residential area or a city, a metro area, a lot of people are just randomly filming stuff. They might see that, that there is an issue and now they're filming you on their phone. You want to have something to go back on, right? So we always know that cameras are there to protect against lawsuits, protect against, regulatory items, and protect yourself just against being unfairly accused of things. So they will help in terms of data queues, just general rule of thumb for crashes, right? Always get your police reports as soon as possible. Typically, they're about 7 to 14 days out. Most police stations will have them ready. Most of the time after you get into a crash, you'll be given a police exchange report, or the driver will. Once that happens, that's going to be who has your police report. So make sure that the documentation gets there, gets to whoever it needs to at your business. You order that police report as soon as it's available, and then that's kind of when you can kind of submit to the data queue, because how the current crashes work is all reportable crashes that involve an injury, a tow away, or a fatality are automatically listed as reportable, and they will automatically go on your preventable crashes. So they're going to be counting against you unless you do your due diligence and submit them in, accordingly using these, standards. So there's always a call to action kind of as soon as these crashes happen, and you kind of want to follow that bullet list. If you're confused about that, you can always give us a call. We can help you out with kind of like, hey, what to do after a crash occurs, where to get the police report. We can help in some instances obtain it for you, and then submit the crashes for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Just to show that the program has been doing something. From May 1st, 2020 to December 30th of 2022, nearly 40,000 data queue requests for crash reviews were submitted in. Approximately 72.5 of those that were submitted in were eligible. Approximately 96% of the eligible crashes were found not to be preventable. I know you had an interesting statistic on the 5%.
So the preventable ones you said 95% of the preventable crashes were removed, right? You'd just be like, why wouldn't 100%? Well, some of those instances they found during their investigation into that crash, they found that the driver, for instance, may have been prohibited by the clearinghouse, may have not had a valid license, or the license was suspended. Anytime that happens, it's automatically going to, regardless of all these factors, you're not going to get it removed, right? Because that driver shouldn't have been on the road in the first place. So, if you have a medical card that's expired, or any of those items where they do an investigation, you find out, driver didn't have a med card, license was suspended, clearinghouse had them prohibited. One of those items would be the reason why that would not be. So those are rare. Again, if you look at the statistics, 95% of the ones that fall into the categories are going to get it. Time frame, again, FMCSA is overloaded with submissions, right? So it's not always the quickest process in terms of, hey, I submit it today and tomorrow it's done. I actually just had one today, and I submitted one yesterday, and it got upgraded, or it got changed today. But more often than not, you're not going to have that happen. Each state has their own data queue division and does it their own way. So some states get inundated with more than the others. So don't wait for it. Don't wait for your insurance company to call you about it and mention your SMS scores and say, hey, your crash indicator's into alert. And then you'd say, oh, well, a bunch of these crashes shouldn't have been under my score anyway.
Absolutely, yeah.
We hear that a lot is companies that are, I think, reacting to it, right? Check your scores on a monthly basis. Make sure that all the roadside inspections that should be there are there. It wasn't a typo from somebody else's DOT number or an old owner operator that was leased on to you that you guys terminated, and now it's still there because they kept your DOT number on the side of their truck, or there's a million different reasons why that happens.
Yeah.
Even run into the same topic of, if the officer made a typo, right? I made a mistake and, typed the wrong, a 0 should have been an O on the license. That happens, and we've had, totally different drivers that fell under companies that don't even,
right.
Don't operate for them. So, check your scores, I think is the best way to do that. And, be proactive about doing that stuff.
Absolutely. I mean, again, it's a good statistics that they put out there of how many, were changed. So if you have a crash that meets those eligibility requirements, make sure that you are using the system to benefit you. If you don't know how or don't know what to submit, because there are supporting documents that you need to submit, feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email. We would be happy to help. We do tons of these on a daily basis, probably every day. I know you and your team do that. Again, just to wrap up, the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration will accept comments on the proposed changes for 60 days, beginning Thursday, April 13th. Comments can be made at www.regulation.gov by searching docket number FMCSA 2022-0233. Again, any questions that you ever have for your compliance needs, feel free to give us a call. And thanks for listening.